everyone, this is Georgia, the Genealogy Queen, coming to you with an update on what's new this week in genealogy. Today, hopefully you looked back at my part 1 as we talked through what was new in family search, especially with the 1950 census. This time we're going to go ahead and look at Ancestry.com and come along. Okay, so here we are, and I pulled up my main screen, and this is going to get, I guess, a little personal because we're going to be looking at various things, including my DNA. But I think this is the best way to show you, right? So the first thing we're going to do is kind of look at the 1950 census. We're going to come down here on the right-hand side and click on 1950. Now it's going to go ahead and show you, here is that search screen. And I went ahead and I typed in kind of my area, and it shows the enumeration districts. Let's see, and if I click on the enumeration district, it is now linked and I can browse the images. And so I can go through and look and try to find my individual. So if I happen to know that information, right? So for here, it's if I know the town that they grew up in, or the town that I was in, right, at the time. So that works great. If you don't know where someone was located, they're not quite ready yet. So what they're doing is you can go ahead and type the information in. However, the states are not yet indexed and up and ready. So with the exception of Alaska. So Alaska came up on Ancestry.com as the first one to be indexed and explored. They went off of their AI. And so I love Ancestry.com, and so this isn't meant to be negative whatsoever. They are doing great leaps and bounds in their technology and being able to use artificial intelligence and to be able to get things out quicker and generally speaking, just in a better format, in a better way. It is a newer technology, however, and so there is going to be lots of spelling errors or E's and I's and O's and A's, all kind of merged together in cursive handwriting, and so. We're finding that over on the family search site that we talked about when we're verifying those indexes, that there are lots of corrections to be made. And so I'm not sure what Ancestry is doing on the back end on their side to make those corrections, or if they're sharing that with family search once they do it. I don't know. But so take that with a grain of salt if you're going to be searching via Ancestry, that you're trying all the different spelling variations. Think about how your last name looks in cursive and how that could be misinterpreted by a computer. But I do like the format, of course, of how to do this and how to help. You can also explore maps, and you can type in a location, and then you can find out from the location what that enumeration district is, or what the options are, right? So you can kind of verify that. So that's kind of what's going on, I guess, with the 1950 census at Ancestry, but that is not the big news at all. The big news of this week for Ancestry is the DNA. So I'm going to go to the results summary, and they once again updated the ethnicity estimates, right? And you say, why does it always change, and why is it different, and I don't understand this. Let's walk through it just a little bit, and hopefully I can clarify some of those questions for you. So we go ahead and we click on the ethnicity estimate, right? And here is my ethnicity estimate, and it says it has 10 regions, and it's now giving me one that it didn't before, which I knew from my family, and my sister had it, and it just wasn't showing up on mine. And so I think they've resolved it, and it's more accurate to my tree and what I've been able to verify, right? And so let me just stop here for a few seconds and talk about this. So one, they have what they call a control group, which are people who have lived in these regions for several hundred years, their families have not moved. And so over time, genetically, you create these markers that carry on your chromosomes, and the centimorgans is the tissue in between your DNA strand, right? And it tells us how we're related to each other and certain characteristics of ourselves. And it can, therefore, show us over time what our ethnicities are. And again, these are estimates, and I want to make sure people understand that. So if your estimate moved from 13 to 14%, take that with a grain of salt and just exhale, right? So, but just to give you an idea, I'm going to actually go here to like Sweden and Denmark because it's a lower percentage. I'm going to click on that for 6%. Now, if I click on that and I look, you can actually see it's showing it actually can be a range of 0 to 18%. So your total page here that's giving you your breakdown is really an estimate, but even within those, they're saying, hey, but it still can be within a range. So if you know that you have a lot more Sweden and Denmark than what it's showing here, and you click on it and it says, well, but it could be up to 18%. You're like, oh, that makes sense then, right? So don't stress too much about this. What it is doing is it's comparing to you in against the control group. And so I guess for me, what I'm getting is I'm getting a lot of questions where people think it's comparing to other people's trees and shared matches trees and says, well, if their tree's screwed up, then my ethnicity estimate's screwed up. And that's not the case, right? So this is really basing it, comparing against a control group of people who have lived in those communities or those countries for several hundred years and have those genetic markers that are unique to them that you can distinguish. And so that's what you're being compared to. You can use your tree and your shared matches to figure out under which line you're getting that, right? And or if you know that one parent has that ethnicity and another one does not, then that also helps you determine which lines you're inheriting that information. And it can help you identify the shared matches that you get on Ancestry as to what line they're related through. So this is kind of my breakdown. And normally I wouldn't make any comment about this, but I am proud of my diversity of the various countries, including my 1% of Benin and Togo. And that is it's actually the Yoruba tribe in Africa. And I know that is the Ivory Coast, and that is, touching upon a very sensitive subject with slavery. And we just need to own that, right? So we need to own the fact that people who have that ethnicity that are showing as white as my skin is, that yes, there can be slavery. Now, in my case, what's really interesting is as we go through not only my DNA matches and or documents, is that all of my family lived in the North. No one were slave owners. And we believe that this was a result of a consensual relationship through the Underground Railroad. And my family fought against slavery, fought in the Civil War against slavery, and were always proponents of equality. And so we believe that this was a consensual affair that resulted in this. And you know what? Good, bad, or otherwise, this is all part of our history and what makes us us. And the other comment I would make about that, and maybe do another video on, is that my personal belief is that we are all one human race and all equal in all things. And these are just ways for us to research and find out more about our history and our culture and where the different ancestors that we have come from and what their stories and their journeys have been up until this point. But it seems silly to me, as someone who really has studied DNA and genetics, to say that it'd be the same as being discriminatory against somebody who had a different hair color than you, or a different hair texture than you, or a different eye color than you, because that's all expressed through various things. So most of my family is blonde-haired, green and blue-eyed, and has olive or rich toned skin. And so I look very opposite of most everyone in my family in that regard. Of course, when you see us smiling and posing pictures together, it's really obvious we're all related to each other. But having this albino level porcelain skin and having black eyes, is very different from the rest of my family. And one person in each generation is expressed this way, and I am the person who is expressed this way, right? And so let's try not to get too hung up on our outer appearances and also our skin tones and whatever. But I think we should celebrate our cultures, our backgrounds, and who makes us who we are, right? Regardless of what that story is. And if you have painful experiences in your background through betrayal or through affair or through slavery, or any of those very painful experiences that our ancestors expressed, I look at it as it shows us how resilient and strong those ancestors were, and then we can bring that part of them with us, and hopefully we can leave some of that pain and the origins of how we got to the United States away, whether it was through war, whether it was through no fault of our own, or even whether we had a choice. So with that, I'm going to move on because there is a lot of really cool stuff on here I want to share. But I just feel like I needed to address that because I know that comes up whenever I share my DNA in live classes. That's always a question, and or there's judgment put around that, and I just wanted to share my views on that. So anyway, so as we scroll down, past there on the right hand side, we get our ethnicity inheritance, and this is what's new for the week, is that we can view our breakdown. And what they've done is they've used this algorithm to show us what they believe we've inherited from parent 1 and parent 2. And so people are like, well, which is which, right? Is that parent 1 always the dad? No, it actually depends. And I manage several trees, and they are a mix. So some of them have the mom as parent 1 and some of them have the dad as parent 2. And so you really have to kind of investigate a little bit to figure out, are there things that you know by ethnicity percentages that can only be one parent, right, that are unique? So in my case, I'm going to click on like England, and it'll highlight just that. And so both parents had some of that. I'm going to click on Eastern Europe and Russia, and I'm pretty sure that that's my father, right, because that is his dad's side of the family. Irish, my dad had a lot of Irish in his background, and my mom has a little bit, and so that's also playing true. German is interesting because I always thought my dad, like I know we have Germany from there, but I just didn't inherit it from him. So we each take 50% from our parents. And so it doesn't mean that your parents were only these ethnicities. It means this is what you inherited from them. So I know that my dad is German, but I did not take his side of German, but I took my mom's side of German. So I hope that makes sense. And please reach out and comment below with any questions you have. Sweden and Denmark, I have a little bit of both, which was very interesting to me because I did not know about any Sweden and Denmark on my dad's side. But as I started looking then at the research, even the documents, they all say like Eastern Baltic, right? A very northern tip of Poland, German speaking. But we do have a couple of the wives in those generations that the names didn't really match with that. And so we're thinking that maybe ancestrally, right, that they came across the Baltic Sea from Sweden or Denmark, and maybe that's why that's being picked up. It also could indicate, right, if somebody is not who they said they were in the tree, right, if we have a surprise. But in this case, it's not. There is no surprise in there. But then there's things that are unique to what I've now identified as my mom. And so, like, I know that the Baltics here, this little yellow slice, is my dad. I know that the Benin and Togo comes from my mom. And so this verifies me when I put all of this together, especially with the Eastern Europe being on my dad's side, with these being my mom's side, that parent 1 for me is my dad and parent 2 is my mom, right? And so you can go through that, and if both parents are German, English, Irish, or both parents are 100% Irish, this isn't really helpful to you. But it is kind of cool to see what they're saying. Now, I'm going to give a couple caveats. If you have, especially in the United States and in England, etc., if you have royal blood in you, or if you have situations where distant cousins married each other, then like, third, fourth, fifth cousins, sixth cousins, ninth cousins, whatever it is, you can have some overflow back and forth between these. And so it's not 100% accurate in those circumstances, right? I'm going to go ahead. And that was very common. So people get grossed out by that idea, but that was actually very common in rural communities and in rural communities. To have that happen, you just had a very small pool of selection to pick from when you got married. And so marrying a third or fourth cousin wasn't unusual, right, up until the 1900s. And so just, understand that history and understand that that can skew these. So if you have a little bit of question about that, keep in mind that if that's part of your trade, then there might be a mix. But let's scroll down. So here's a detailed comparison. So it's basically taking that pie and saying this is your makeup. So you over here is 100%, parent 1 is 50, parent 2 is 50, and now it's giving me like England. I knew 44%, and it showed both parents had it. 16% inherited from my dad, 28% from my mom. East Europe, 17, 0, etc. And so it kind of goes down the line. I was really surprised again about that Germany, that's all coming from my mom and that I didn't get any from my dad. My sister shows that she got some from dad too, so we know that it's there. I just didn't get it. And so that's the other thing, is that if people say, well, if you have siblings, or if you have, why would they need to do it, or first cousins or second cousins, this all helps break down your ethnicities. It breaks down if there's more ethnicities your parents or other people inherited that you can't see on your own test. They'll show up there. And the more, I always say the more the merrier, right? The more information you have to compare. And so anyway, I just wanted to give you this quick little background of this new feature called ethnicity inheritance. And you can click on share, and you can go ahead and download that document, and so you can email it to your friends or share it with your parents. It actually was really cool. In my case, my dad had passed away back in 2004, and so we never got his test done. And so to be able to see this breakdown and kind of see what you inherited from each parent was kind of cool, and I had to share that with my mom, and she thought that was awesome. So anyway, I hope this was informative and helpful. If you haven't seen it, I know a lot of other people have shared this as well. But it's exciting. It's fun to see all the new ways that they're utilizing this information. And so with that, I hope you have a great week. And we're going to be going back kind of to the beginning, I think, at some point, and saying, let's start with, if you're brand new to genealogy, how do I get started, right? How do I even go about doing this? Or I don't know who my parents were or my grandparents were, or I don't know anything about this one side of my tree, and how do you get to find out that information? And so we'll start there and we'll work our way forward. It will be good even for people who have said, well, I've been doing my tree, I don't need to start over. Sometimes it's really great to go back and review and to say, let's go back to the beginning and look at it with a fresh pair of eyes, and how much information you can say, oh, I forgot I wrote that down 8 years ago, or, I forgot that happened, or, oh yeah, that's right, I was looking at that lead and then I jumped to something else and left that alone. So I encourage you to come along with the story, come along with, this process, and I hope you're having a really great time doing genealogy. Have a great week.